Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at another tournament, but this is like a tournament where it consists of like the whole year. And it is, of course, the Titled Cup. Now, the Titled Cup is a year-long leaderboard consisting of over 100 Titled Tuesdays. And I think you are all familiar with Titled Tuesday, and it is a tournament that is like what chess.com like specializes in. Like they held this tournament on every week's Tuesday, and it's called Titled Tuesday because only titled players can participate in this tournament. And there are over 100 Titled Tuesdays in the whole year. So not only winning one Titled Tuesday is important, but winning like the more Tuesdays you win, the higher this whole score will be. And what I meant by that is that there's this leaderboard. There are many sections actually: the open, women, the seniors, the juniors, the girls, and you see they all have this score and this ranking, and whoever is like the first, like actually like the higher your score gets, the higher the prize will be. And there are many players, like any Tile players can join the Tile Tuesday. There are regular appearances of Grandmasters Hikaru Nakamura, Magnus Carlsen, Alexander Koshchenyuk, Alireza Firouzja, and many more. This is the recent leaderboard. We see that Hikaru is right now at the first place with 201 rating point, not rating points, but score. And Magnus is right behind him, just down 5 points, so it's really close. And you see there's the women's section, like those rankings. Alexander Koshchenyuk is in first, but she only has 145 score points, like comparing to Hikaru, who has so much more than she has, but she is still in first place. And also like there are untitled Tuesdays as well, those for us who are like haven't got a title. And there's also the community bullet brawl, which is the untitled bullet brawl, that is. And yeah, so this is basically what the Tile Cup 2024 Tile Cup is all about. These are the prizes, and you see actually the prizes are pretty high. First place in the open has $10,000, so it's actually pretty a lot of money actually, because it is an online tournament after all. So having this high prize fund is really nice. Alright, so basically this is what all it's about. And recently, in the most recent actually in this most recent Tile Tuesday, we have FIDE Master Reza Mahdavi, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, from Iran, who is in first place, and we have Magnus in second. Actually, we didn't see Hikaru play in this Tile Tuesday, like in December 24, late 2024 Tile Tuesday. But I mean, if Hikaru was playing this, he will definitely get a very high score. But he didn't play, and we have Magnus here in second place. Now, actually, besides Magnus, there's also Wesley and some of the top players. And today, I'm going to be showing you guys a game from the Tile Tuesday, and it is played between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley. Now, this game was in round 10, and very close to the end of the Tile Tuesday. Here we have Magnus with the white pieces. He is already 8 out of 9, and this is round 10 coming up. And Wesley is 7.5 out of 9. So both are actually having really high scores. Yeah, let's jump into this game. So both are actually top grandmasters in the world, and even though this is like blitz chess, still many things can happen, right? And studying these top grandmaster games, not only classical games are worth studying, but also their blitz games, because blitz games, grandmasters, they can also make mistakes during fast chess, and we can actually also learn from these mistakes, because if grandmasters can make these kinds of mistakes, then we will definitely also have the possibility to make these mistakes. Alright, but anyways, let's start this game. And knight f3 was played by Magnus. Wesley so here played knight f6, g3, d5, bishop g2, c5, and short castle. Now this is called the King's Indian attack, not the King's Indian defense, which is a completely different opening. And this is actually the name of this opening is really interesting. It's called the King's Indian attack, the Sicilian variation. Very confusing name, but it is called that way. Knight c6 and d3 was played. So actually you see that white is setting up a structure that is very similar to the King's Indian defense for black. And now black is actually kind of like playing like the King's Indian defense, but with the white pieces. So black is actually playing, like placing all of his pieces where what white should do in the King's Indian defense. But anyways, h6 was played and knight bd2. Now actually, knight bd2 is a small inaccuracy, but I mean, even though it is blitz chess, I think Magnus definitely knows how to play here. c4 and e4 are actually both possible options. e4 is kind of aggressive. After d takes, d takes. The main point is that if you take on e4 here, there's queen e1. Now the knight probably has to go back, but then white will have a lead in development. But it is like a really difficult line to like calculate, so there are many possibilities in it. But anyways, in the game, c4, Magnus didn't play c4 nor e4, but instead he played knight bd2, which is a small inaccuracy, already giving black the initiative. Here black played e5 and e4 was played. You see, this is exactly what it looks like, just like when we switch the sides in the King's Indian defense. White is playing like how black should be playing, and black is doing the exact same thing, like how white should be playing. d4, closing up the center, knight c4, attacking the e5 pawn, and here queen c7 was played. a4, preventing b5 of course, and bishop e6. Knight fd2 was played, but this is actually a move that is kind of unnecessary. Like, I can understand that Magnus is trying to go here, first of all, to defend this knight, second of all, to threaten to go f4. But I think knight h4 is a move that is more effective because you really don't need to worry about this. f4 is coming up and your pawns are actually well defended. After b3, you can defend the c4 pawn. The e4 pawn right now is well defended by the bishop. f4 is coming. White has the bishop pair. So this position is actually pretty convenient for white to be playing in. But Magnus instead played knight fd2, which is not a big mistake. But there's just like better options than knight fd2. g5 was played by Wesley, so really aggressive, first of all, preventing f4, and also trying to create some counterplay on the king side. And actually, after g5, this meant that black is not going to go short castle whatsoever, but deciding to go long castle in the future. Here, queen e2 was played by Magnus, but actually already at this point of the game, black is having a small advantage already, positional advantage that is. Here, what Magnus should be playing is actually to reroute this knight. To first of all go knight a3, and now threatening to go knight b5, so black goes a6. But then you put this knight to c4. The main point behind this move is that you're opening up this diagonal and still threatening to go f4 at some point. Because you see, the main problem is that the d2 knight is blockading this bishop, and also there's a reason why knight fd2 is not good, because it blocks this bishop and creates some challenges to push f4. But it's not a big deal, and queen e2 was played, just giving black some chances actually. Rook g8 was played, very logical, and a5. Magnus is pushing really hard on the queen side, creating a lot of space, but the position is just not great for him. Black is playing really convenient at this point of the game. Wesley played bishop e7, developing the bishop, very logical, and knight b3 was played. Here, h5 was pushed, and f4. But already f4 is like a mistake, because right now, I mean, f4 opening up all the files and diagonals just looks really risky for white. And the king is still like being like the rook is looking directly at the king. Any tactics can happen here. f4 just looks really risky. So probably if white wants to be a little bit more solid, probably white can go king h1 first, and then maybe in the future try to go f4. But of course here black can also go h4, and here with like calculation, you can actually take on h4, and after black takes, you can go bishop d2, and probably later on bishop f3, rook g1 to offer a trade of rooks. But at least at this point, I think black is in a situation where he cannot lose. Like, probably it'll end in a draw or a win for black, but like the result is gonna be good for black. But anyways, here, instead of playing king h1, which is more solid, Magnus here played f4, just going directly, opening up everything. G takes f4 was played, G takes f4, and now bishop g4, first of all attacking the queen. Wesley is playing like really well here. Right now he hasn't made a single mistake. And queen d2 was played, running away with the queen, bishop h3, and the only move rook f2 to defend the bishop. Here Wesley made the first mistake. Now actually, his idea was really simple, to get the queen to g4 as well. Maybe what he calculated is that if white goes f takes e5, then he will be going knight g4 at this point. And the main point is that here white cannot take on h3 because there's knight f2. And if you take the knight, I'll take the bishop. And if you take, like, if you go back here, but then knight h3, king f1, and then queen g4 comes, this is game over. But I think Wesley just simply missed this next move played by Magnus. The only defending move here, which is to go f5. Found by Magnus, cutting off this diagonal. And it's actually suddenly pretty safe for white. And what black should have done here is actually just to go long castle, really simple. And if you go f5 right now, at least I can go rook g4 and double the rooks on the g-file faster than queen d7, that is. I mean, I had already got my king to safety, and now I just need to start launching the attack on the king side. Long castle is a much better option, but instead in the game, queen d7 was played, f5, and long castle. But black is just one move slower, and now giving white the opportunity to run away with king h1. Bishop g2 was played. Of course, now the bishop is being attacked, so there's no rook g4 options, and you have to take or drop back to g4. But, I mean, if you go bishop g4, there's h3, and it's not great for black. You just take on g2, but after rook g2, like, your main attacking piece, the white bishop, has been traded off, and now it's actually kind of easy for white to defend and have a great comeback. Rook g2 was played, but this just gives black, it just gives away all of black's advantage. The only move left for black to still stay better is to go h4 and then threaten to go h3 to create a massive space on the king side, which can still create some possibility for black to win. Probably white goes h3, but then there's knight h5, knight g3 is coming. Black is still in a much more convenient zone than white is. But instead, rook g2 was played in the game, and after queen g2, rook g8, even though black has faster development and also this open g-file, but it doesn't really matter here because now after queen f3, queen d8, now the bishop is out, the rook is about to come out to g-file, king c7, and bishop e1. And now actually already we see that this position is turning into an endgame. A pair of rooks, also a pair of bishops already off the board, and you see that now it's same colored bishop and position. And now let's compare the activeness of all of the pieces. White's queen is kind of, or like slightly more active than black's queen. The rook is probably, like black's rook is probably better than white's rook, but white can always go rook g1 to trade it off. And white has the better pawn structure. Most of white's pawns are all on light squares, leaving black's pawns on dark squares, which is excellent because we have the dark square bishop, and we can always reroute the bishop back to put enough pressure on the e5 pawn, that is, first of all. Second of all, these two knights. This knight is excellent, attacking e5. This knight is also attacking c5, maybe at some point even going a5, knight a6, knight a5. And also, the bishop is much more active than this bishop because this bishop is completely locked inside the pawn chain, and it is really difficult for this bishop to ever come to this diagonal to offer a trade because that'll take too many moves, and by that time the e5 pawn might have been already falling off. And by comparing all of the pieces' activeness, we can clearly evaluate this position that white is now back into the game and having a slight positional advantage. Let's see how this game continued. Magnus found this excellent rerouting the bishop idea with bishop e1, knight g4 was played, but then here h3, the knight has to go back. Although here, Wesley actually found this excellent move, not excellent, but brilliant move. This move deserves a 2 exclamation. And the move is not to go back with the knight, not to go knight f6, but to go bishop h4 here. And the point behind this move is that now suddenly white realizes that he cannot take on g4 because then there's bishop takes, rook takes, and queen h4 winning the rook. But if you don't take on g4, and if you take on h4, then this is also really worse because now you can't even take the knight back and all of black's pieces are really active. And like it's just kind of like falling apart. Knight f2 is coming. Also, if you take on c5 here, knight f2, king h3, and knight probably like even rook g4 is coming. It's really scary here. Like basically, black is just throwing all of his pieces towards white's king, and it's kind of like game over. The only move here to stay positive for white is to go f6 to cut off the queen and the bishop. But now after bishop takes e1, rook takes e1, probably knight f6 happens, and knight takes c5, trading off a few pieces and pawns, and this should end in a draw. Maybe black still have some chances because black's king is safer than white's king. It's really messy like that. But in the game, however, after bishop h3, well, Magnus actually did play f6, and bishop e1, rook e1, this is something that really happened in the game. Knight f6, and reaching this position here, it should have ended in a really, easy draw. Black might even have some chances, but then things started to go really weird. Magnus first played rook f1, not the best move, not as great as knight c5, but makes sense. Knight d7, queen takes h5, okay. Magnus starts to gobble up the pawns, rook h8, queen g4, queen e7, and king h2 defending h3. White is now, well actually both sides have the same pawns, same amount of pawns. f6 was played, rook g1, but white's pieces are slightly more active than black's pieces. Also the pawn structure for white is better. f6 is also a huge weakness. And here b5 was played. A takes b5, a takes b5, the a file is open, giving both sides a lot of opportunities. And in the game here, Magnus actually played queen g7, offering a trade of queens. Now actually the best move for black is to go rook h7, but what black played in the game, queen e8, is also fine. Rook g3, this is actually a mistake, but not really clear why it is. And it's not easy to spot the best reply, which is to go knight d8, knight e6 to reroute the knight. And what white should have done instead is actually to go with knight a3 to reroute the knight to b5. And probably black will go knight d8 still, and knight b5, king c6, knight a7. This will just likely end in a draw. But however, instead of the game, Magnus didn't realize that he can reroute the knight, and he played rook g3. And in the game, Wesley also missed knight d8, and instead he played this miss move, and it's actually like a disaster. And he played queen h5. Now already the eval bar is starting to go up, and white is back in the game. Like white is having some opportunities. First of all, knight b6 was played. This is still a draw, but now at least white is going to be up a pawn. King b6, queen d7, queen e2. Now this is a mistake where it looks kind of reasonable, but after queen e2, rook g2 block, there are no more checks for black. Queen e2 looks like a move that is so natural that anyone just wants to play it. But you have to realize that after queen e2, there are no more checks after rook g2. And you should play rook h7 instead to get this queen away. And after queen c8, basically you can now just give a check and you can just go back or go queen f3. At least you have to stop white from giving any checks to your king. But in the game, queen e2 was played first, which just leads to disaster. Queen e2, rook g2, queen f1, queen g4. I mean, white is just now up a healthy pawn. Rook a8. This is another mistake, but already in the game, Wesley only has 20 seconds left on the clock. Anything can happen. Knight d2. Black just allowed white to successfully reroute the knight to this excellent c4 outpost after queen f4. Queen takes, but now black's pawn structure is completely damaged, and after rook f2, not the best way to win, but knight d4 just wins immediately. Rook f2 also makes sense though. And here, the only move to help black trying to create some drawing chances is actually to go king b5, because if you take on f4, there is now knight b4 attacking the c2 pawn. Probably black, if with excellent play, might still be able to draw this game. Knight d4, there's knight c2, and if you take on f6, there's knight b4 attacking the d3 pawn. It's really messy, not a clear endgame. But however, in the game, Wesley played this move. It looks really natural, but after knight e5, which is a blunder, there's now rook f4, rook a2, rook f6, king c7. Now rook f5. It's just too late for black to start gobbling up the pawns. Rook b2, but now it's just game over. King g3, takes. White is now up 2 pawns. King b6 and rook d5. This is a rook endgame, but I think it is just really easy for Magnus to win because he is up 2 healthy pawns and he has black's king cut off completely. Now all white needs to do is just start pushing the h pawn. The d pawn can never promote, and you just have to hide your king in front of the e pawn to avoid any back rank checks, and the rook can never come out anymore. Now you just start pushing the pawns. This is just a winning rook and pawn endgame. You start pushing the pawn because the king is cut off one file, and it's really important that it is cut off. And here after e7, Wesley resigned the game. This game was a blitz game, but still, I think we can all enjoy this game and learn many things from it. It is like there are many mistakes in it, but it just seems more interesting compared to these classical games played by these top grandmasters, because these classical games, it just looks really boring because both of the players are just playing all of these accurate computer moves, and sometimes we cannot even understand them. Yeah, and I think these blitz games are also really enjoyable for us, and hope you guys learned something from this game. I mean, yeah, Tile Tuesday is a really enjoyable tournament. There are also many more interesting games that you guys can go and check out. But today, I think this is the most interesting game in this tournament. And I mean, one day if I get a title, I want to participate. I really want to participate in this tournament as well. Yeah, I mean, we can train, learn a lot of experiences, get a lot of experiences from all of these tournaments. I hope you guys enjoyed this game as well as this video. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!